In this second part of a webinar for community archives about filming on your phone, the volunteers learn about shot sizes, framing, background, and lighting.
It's worth learning what the different shot sizes are called because you might be talking with each other about certain shots that you want to do. It helps with communication, and it also really helps with thinking ahead about what you want to film and how you want to film things. First, we've got something called the long shot. So as you can see here on the image, it frames the whole figure of your subject, which can be a person, which can be a thing. And it frames the whole thing. But it places the subject also in relation to their environment and the people around them. So you can see here that man is walking down a street with trees. It really sets the scene. Can somebody tell me what emotion that man is having on his face? I can see it if, you put your glasses on, you went really close. That's exactly what I'm after. So long shots are not very good at telling us what the person or the person that you're depicting, what they're feeling. Long shots are great for showing the background, but not emotions, really. So they are, for example, also not used for interviews, because in interviews you want to see a person's face, you want to see their mouth moving. So they're really for setting the scene and for showing the background. Next, we have the mid or medium shot. So you can see here, the subject is framed from the waist up, and again, we can see a bit of surroundings, so it relates the subject to the surroundings, but the subject, the man in this photo, is at the absolute center of attention. And here we could also, for example, see if he's gesturing, we can read his body language a little bit. This is generally also not used for an interview because it's a bit too far away and we see a lot of body and hands. Moving on, we've got the medium close-up. So that frames a subject's head and it cuts off roughly at around the mid-chest. The focus is on the subject and it reveals only very little of their background. And here you can see the facial expression quite well. And so this shot is mostly used for interviews. I would say he looks a bit grumpy here. That's the emotion that I'm seeing. So you will be able to see this shot all over the telly from now on when you look for it. Any interview you see is generally framed exactly in this way. So in the future, if at some point for any films you're shooting, you'll be doing an interview, this is the shot to go for. Moving on, we've got the close-up. So that's when we're really quite close. It frames the subject's face and cuts off at the mid-neck. And the subject fills almost the entire frame. It captures emotions, it captures facial expressions. And it can indicate that something interesting or important has been said. You might capture that sometimes on telly, you have an interview and suddenly you're a bit closer. That's generally because there's a point to be made in what the person has been saying. However, when you're filming it, it can be a bit intrusive because you need to be quite close to the person in order to get a close-up. So that's something to keep in mind when you're, for example, filming with someone who's very, very nervous. Next, we've got the extreme close-up. So the extreme close-up frames one part of the subject. So it could be the eyes, the mouth, the hands, and this one can be used to show emotions and specific actions, like, for example, fidgeting, or even crying. You would be seeing that quite a lot, maybe in films when there's an emotional scene, somebody's crying, the single tear that's rolling down the cheek, that's an extreme close-up. And it can be also used to film people without identifying them. So you might see that in crime documentaries when we film a perpetrator, but we don't want to actually see their face, we want to keep them anonymous. Now, what shot size you choose is very important. So when you have a camera in your hand, it's in your power to decide how you want to film things. And you really need to think about what you want your video to convey. So, for example, the wide shot really sets the scene. It shows you the background, while close-ups show much, much more detail. And so now I'd like to show you a little video that actually shows how all of these shots look in practice. Now you know all the names for the shots and how they're being used. There are a few more things to watch out for when you frame your shot. And some of them may seem obvious, but it's really easy to get them wrong, and mistakes make the shot look very quickly very unprofessional. So one important thing is to always triple check the background. So if you can, it's best to avoid too much clutter in the background. And equally, a plain white wall in the background might be a bit too boring. So have a look around and see how you can frame a shot so there's not much clutter in the background, but also maybe not just a white wall. If you're filming outside, there might be a lamppost or some trees in the background. And in particular, when you're filming people, it might just look like it's growing out of their head. If that happens, just move a little bit to the side and see that it's not too distracting if there's something like that in the background. And most importantly, watch out for distracting signs, adverts, books on shelves, anything with large fonts, because as soon as there's writing on the frame, your eyes will wander to that as a viewer, and we want to avoid that. And keeping all of these things in mind, it's generally best that when you're at location and you've decided what you want to film, go through these things and have a look around and really set up your shot and take time to review it and see how you can avoid these mistakes. And then moving on, a very important part is lighting. So good lighting can really, really change your shot. It can make or break it. You always want to move your subject to the best light. So that could be a person, but for example, if you want to film a photo lying on a table, again, you have to take care that there's enough light to actually illuminate the photo sufficiently. And one golden rule for getting good light is that you never want to shoot a subject against windows. So you don't want the light to be right behind the person's back. So for example, if you are in a common room and you're shooting 3 people having a conversation, if you can move them away from the window towards the other side of the room, that's always best. So you always want to keep the light to the front or the side of the subject. Windows in the back are no good. And tablets, iPads, and phones shoot best in daylight. So the better light you have, the better.
So, feels like you have done enough listening from us, and let's get to practice those shots. So let's start with filming people and framing up shot sizes. The exercise is you need to film 5 video clips on your phones. So 1 shot per video clip. So you will shoot 1 wide shot, 1 mid shot, 1 medium, 1 close-up. Make sure that each clip is at least 10 seconds. We need to get in the habit to shoot clips long enough that they're editable in video. This is a big step moving from taking a photograph. We need to set up the shot, film it for 10 seconds. When you're framing the shots, remember to think about headroom, triple check the background. When you frame up the shot, tap on the screen where the person's eyes are, tap and hold to lock the focus on the person. When you reframe the next shot, you will need to tap and hold again to reset your focus. So in each shot, frame up, tap and hold to focus, shoot for 10 seconds, reframe, and continue. After the training, the volunteers made short promotional films about their community heritage groups. Here's how they got on with using the different kinds of shots.
The thing I remember most, would you believe, is panning the camera, which is something I'd never done before.
In terms of framing, I've become hyper aware of clutter. That's something I probably wouldn't have thought about before. It's a good reflection of how it's really sort of changed the way that I think about what I'm doing.
Sometimes when you come out to do it, you're kind of thinking you need to kind of keep that in your mind, I think, because you just get a bit carried away with the filming and kind of think, oh, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But is it working? You know, think of the shots, keep thinking of that all the time when you're out and about.
I've never attended any kind of training of this nature. So, yeah, it was an eye-opener for me.
I struggled to remember everything at one go. That was I found hard. You come in for a film and think, oh, God, I haven't done so-and-so. And it was just so many things to remember. And sometimes you get the framing wrong because you were so conscious of the other aspects of it to get right.
It's amazing that we've actually got something in the can, as they say, I suppose, because there was a lot to learn. The only important thing for us now is to continue using those skills that we picked up from you.
That's the end of this part of the webinar about filming on your phone. Next, you should watch part 3, Picture Sequences.